Hey guys, I'm Dee Harris. Welcome to another episode of Hanging Out with Dee, and this is our Christmas show today. We have with us the amazing Kim Dulka. She is a fourth-generation farmer, an entrepreneur, and a visionary in the community of Seymour, and we're going to hear her story. Welcome.
Hi. Dee, I'm so happy to be here today.
Yes, and later on we have your friend Chuck that's going to come hang out with us.
Yes.
And we're going to play some music and have some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you grew up on the farm, yeah?
I did. I grew up on a small dairy farm in Seymour, Connecticut. It's been in my family for about 100 years.
What?
So yeah, so I grew up like a real farmer. I find all these old pictures, and people really can't believe it that they had me out there, you know, milking the cows and watering the garden. But it's how I grew up, and it was a wonderful childhood.
Yes. So you have an interesting story. You talk about the community of Seymour being involved in the war and making bullets. Talk about that.
Well, Seymour is in the Naugatuck River Valley, and it's such a vibrant community, and it has such a rich history to it. And you know, half of the town was farm, and the other half was factory. And so it was a very you know, blue-collar town. People just worked very hard, and we were the farmers. There's still a few farms left up on Great Hill, and the downtown was all factory. And you know, I didn't know how important it was just to history. And there was metal factories and wire and copper. And by talking to a lot of the old-timers that come into the general store, they talk about you know, making bullets for the wars, and you know, just how important our area was for the industry throughout history. And so you could find these 90-year-olds and these 80-year-olds that come into the general store, and it's just fascinating to find out really what's, you know, in our backyard.
Yeah. I did come to your store, and I noticed there were quite a bit of old-timers in your store. That's really cool. And then you said that there was a large Slovakian community as well? Yes.
They brought over workers, mostly Slovakian women from Poland. There's a high Polish community in Seymour. David Humphrey brought them over for merino wool, which George Washington had suits made out of merino wool. And so these sheep came from Spain. And so it was kind of it was the first town that they actually had women living there and working in the factories where they supplied housing. So
a lot of dorms and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That is very, very interesting history. All right, so tell me about your parents. You said your dad was a farmer and your mom was...
Yeah, so so everybody on my dad's side, they were all farmers. So starting back in about 1918, so we were beef and dairy and produce, and I hear stories about my great-grandfather would horse and buggy dairy and milk, you know, throughout Seymour. And when I was growing up, we still had cattle, so we were a beef farm. I remember milking the cows. And
you do? You remember?
Oh yeah, one of some of my best memories. Yeah, waking up at like 3:30 in the morning.
Oh my God.
And hay season was always wonderful. You know, it was just a real community time. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about growing up in that time is that all the farmers would work together. And we hear stories about how we would use our milk and we would bring it to another farm and they would make cottage cheese, and then you know, so people really shared in the work, whether it was eggs or honey or selling crops, and so that's one of the things that we really wanted to try to bring back with the general store, is just working with artisans, working with other farmers within the community, and just having a place where people can come and buy local and reconnect with their friends and neighbors.
But your mom was the total opposite of that. She was a
nurse.
Mom,
yes, my mom was the opposite. She was a nurse. She, when I told her that I was moving back about 5 years ago, she actually cried. It's actually been more than 5 years now.
She cried.
You know, one of the things, just growing up on the farm, it was like, you know, most kids would go to summer camp or, you know, have summers, and we would be baling hay. And so I think for my mom's side of the family, it was just, you know, this big strife to, you know,
that you
education.
experienced the world.
Yeah, education and college and, you know, get a job, and it had nothing to do with farming.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I finally turned around and said, I'm moving back to the farm and I'm
like,
going to be farming, they were like, what?
So that's an interesting segue. You did go to college.
I did.
You left the farm. What did you do?
I left the farm. I went to Yukon, and I was up in stores, and one of the first things I noticed is they had a huge agricultural department, and they had cows and horses and pigs, and I was like, wanted to stay as far away from that as
you were like,
I
no
could.
more.
So I majored in graphic design and business, and after
That's
college,
fantastic.
yeah, and after college, I worked in Atlanta, I worked in Manhattan, I was doing the whole taking the train in, and being the professional, the corporate person, and little by little, I just, you know, was getting back to my roots. I did own a day spa in Southbury for about 8 years, and that just stems from the farm too, because when we were growing up, it was just common practice. We would grow chamomile, we would grow lavender, we would make these home remedies, and it was a part of wellness. It wasn't just the food we were eating, but it was also the products that we could make. And so spa just kind of became just a second nature to me, just an extension of wellness.
Absolutely.
And so I was in the spa business for a while, and we do have a little spa now attached to our general store across the street.
It. Very cool.
But yeah, so it kind of just all encompasses about just local and well-being. And
so how did you, so here you are, you're in the city, you're doing what most young people dream of.
Yes.
Why come back to the farm? What was the catalyst for that?
I ended up selling my business, and I was going to be off to the West Coast. Like, I was just like, you know, that's it. You know, I love the West Coast. And my grandmother was passing away. She was ill, and it was just so important to her that somebody just kind of took over the farm, and I had no idea really how to work a farm. I remember growing up, we would do all the fun things. We would, you know, pick the berries or the string beans or do hay rides or, you know, really do all the fun stuff. But to actually
the nitty-gritty behind this,
and plant on a larger scale, I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. But it really meant a lot to her, and so I decided to put my plans on hold. And
so was that like her dying wish for you?
It was.
Oh my
it
gosh.
was. It was. And I kind of gave myself about a year. I thought, well, maybe I could just reestablish this family farm in a year. It's going to be a piece of cake, and then I can be off. You know, and
you fell in love with it.
Yeah, little by little, I just kind of just literally dug my heels in, grounded myself right here on the farm, and I just learned important lessons about farming and what it is to grow organically and to eat locally, and the challenges that come with it. And I always tell people, you know, it's not all glitz and glamour. You know, a lot of people, they look at me and they're like, oh, that's so cool, you know, you're an organic farmer.
No idea.
And it is, it's wonderful. It's such a blessed career and movement to be part of, but there's so much work to it.
A lot of work,
So
I get that. All right, guys, it's time for Dee's Life Questions. All right, Kim, you were struck by lightning. What?
What in the world?
What?
No.
That should be in the What in the World segment. What? Tell me about that and the lessons you learned.
Okay,
from that.
so I remember my grandmother always telling us stories as kids, these old-fashioned stories, like somebody fell in the well or a cow got stuck here, and we would always like giggle and think that they were just like, you know, Little House on the Prairie, like old-fashioned things, and what could really happen when you were farming. And I didn't realize that farming is actually like one of the most dangerous professions to be in, because there's just so many variables. You're out in the elements. So anyways, I was on my farm, and we have a cold frame, which is like a greenhouse. It's about 2,000 square feet, and I ran out. It was just about it was starting to rain, and the sides were left open. And so one of the lessons I learned with farming is that if you leave the sides open to your greenhouse, a gust of wind could literally come in and just destroy 3 or 4 months of your saplings and and it's just the devastation of the highs and the lows with farming. It's like all those little sayings like keep your eggs in one basket and then you drop the whole basket. That's what I felt like when I just thought of the winds coming through and destroying everything. And so without even thinking about it, I ran outside to our greenhouse, and I guess I was building up a static charge as I was running, and I touched the handle of our greenhouse, and the lightning literally came out of the sky. It went in through my right hand, and it grounded through my right leg. Jeez. And so I'm very, very lucky to be alive, and oh
my goodness.
I did have some injuries afterwards.
Talk about that. What happened? So, you did not have external
I didn't have external burns, but what happens with lightning, and I didn't know this, is that you become a burn victim, but it's internal. So I did go to Bridgeport Hospital because they have an excellent burn unit there. And it's all about just taking the heat out of your body, flushing out your systems.
So did you feel pain? Tell me what the experience was like.
So
what does it feel like?
I didn't feel anything at first. I didn't get thrown. I didn't black out. It was more just, it was just channeling through me, and the path that it took from right hand to right foot, I was very fortunate, because if it had crossed left hand to right foot or have crossed my heart, so I was very lucky in that sense. So it just kind of grazed everything. And so
well, you certainly have a purpose.
I guess I do.
You're here.
It made me work even harder.
That's huge.
But
and you said you lost memory?
I did. So it basically, it takes a while for your whole body to rewire. And I remember as I was being taken away by the ambulance, and I really thought that was it, because who gets struck by lightning and lives? And I remember the guy reading my EKGs, and he was just like, and I was so mad, because I just thought, who was going to weed? That is what really kept me through. Really.
Who is going to weed?
Who is going to weed?
That's what kept you focused.
That is what kept me focused. Like, I have to be here, and I have to have a purpose. And so it really made me fight harder through my recovery. I was doing farm markets within the state before the lightning, and we had a rockin' business. We were just all over, you know, selling vegetables and fruit. And then once I got injured, I couldn't drive because I didn't.
That changed the whole.
So that's what brought me to little old downtown Seymour. Yep, so that's what brought me there, because I could get a ride, and thought if I couldn't go out there, I was going to bring the best of Connecticut to our community.
To the community. Okay, guys, it's time for I Don't Like That, Mon. All right, Miss Kim Dulka, what gets on your last nerve?
There's so many things.
So many. Tell us all of them.
Well, I would say just being within the farming community now, people not having accessibility to healthy foods, fresh foods, farm fresh foods, the expense that's associated with eating healthy, eating local, eating organic. That is frustrating for us. Just this past Thanksgiving, we were trying to help a local farm by selling turkeys, and the turkeys were about $12 a pound, and a lot of people were like, oh, I can get a free turkey, or I spend $2 a pound on turkey. So how do we flip that? You know, here's a local farmer, and there's costs involved with feed and grain and the butcher and, you know, the packaging and having everything, you know, USDA standard. How do we switch it within our communities where it becomes more affordable?
Correct.
And it doesn't become a luxury to eat healthy.
Absolutely.
So that is I'm very passionate about that.
And then the other thing that you said was dishonesty and corruption with IPM foods. Talk about what is an IPM food.
So within the farm markets, what we found out is the markets, like anything else, is a business. People are going and they're selling their produce, and it's very competitive. I always thought I was going to do a segment called Behind the Scenes at the Farm Market, the tomato slinging. I mean, it's like everybody's there to sell a tomato, everybody's there to, and it's hard. And a lot of people aren't honest with what they're selling, and we found that there was a lot of corruption within some, not all, a lot of
the
farmers.
conventional farmers.
Yes. most farmers are just, that's what they say, know your farmer, know where your food is coming from. But one of the hardest things we had is that there's a little glitch called IPM, Integrated Pest Management, which if you're using it correctly, it's a wonderful practice. It's not organic. It's farmers that vow not to use pesticides or anything that would be considered toxic. But if there's a worst case scenario, if there's a weather, hurricane,
they have
or
no
if there's
problem spraying it.
Yes, and so integrated pest management becomes very, very tricky. And what we've found is that some farmers will use IPM as a way of taking food that has been heavily sprayed and just saying it's integrated pest management, and the consumer doesn't really know.
We don't like that, Mom.
Yeah.
We don't like that. Okay, guys, it's time for What in the World? All right, finish the statement. What in the world? You said that one of the things that concerned you was, how jobs are being sent overseas.
Yes.
What are?
Yes. So within our own community of Seymour, and say in our Valley community, and then you look in the state of Connecticut, we have so many talented people here. Everything from the wares that they make to the list just goes on and on and on. And we just hear all these stories about people getting laid off or jobs being sourced overseas. And part of the mission at the general store is to really have a place where we support these local artisans, people who want to make some money and they sell their wares through the general store. There's so much talent, there's so much creativity. And people are so smart here within our own town. And so how do we bring it back? So that is one of our passions as well, one of our goals.
And I did notice that in your store, quite a few. There's jewelry, there's hats, and all kinds of things that you're supporting from the local.
We do. It's really hard. It's harder for us. Like, it would be very easy for us to just call and have a delivery of something. But we have no problem driving 2 hours up to a sugar shack and getting maple syrup. We support over 60 different Connecticut producers within our store. Everything from jams and honeys and milk and butter and cheese and ice cream.
That is so cool.
Grass-fed beef. So the list just goes on. So it's really the real deal. We try to keep it, as authentic as we can. Even when you drink a cup of coffee, you're supporting 4 different farms from the Connecticut natural
I remember
spring
you saying
water,
that. That's so awesome.
the coffee, the milk. So we try.
Chuck, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
Yes, so I hear that you are super awesome. You are the best musician that Kim can find, and she thinks you rock.
Oh. Well, I think she rocks too, because she makes the greatest food in the world.
Oh, yes, I've tasted her food. So tell me, how long have you been playing music?
Oh, I have, I've been playing for over 50 years.
Wow.
Started when I was 11. I'm showing my age.
Yeah, you look great though. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. And how long have you been playing? You play music at her store?
Yes. She has.
Tell me about, is that the Wednesday night music
The
night?
Wednesday nights.
Talk about it, Chuck.
A lot of great musicians from all over the state come. Beginners as well as very accomplished musicians. And the great thing about the general store is everybody, if you're a musician or even if you come to watch, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And everyone listens, and it makes for a great time, and it makes for what I've found and what I've heard from people coming into the store is that it feels like home.
Yeah.
Everyone is treated great. And the food is great, and Kim's great.
Kim's great, and our amazing husband.
Yeah.
Shout out to
Michael,
Mike.
yes.
Shout out to Mike. All right, so you're going to play for us today. You guys are going to sing?
Yes, we're going to sing a song that we've rehearsed a couple times.
All right, go for it, guys.
See what happens. Ready, Kim?
See what
I'm ready.
happens.
Once the getting was good, but now the getting's got gone. I'm going downtown just to tie one on. I'm engaged in salary, I'm going down by the hour. I'm as blue as the night is long. So won't someone dance with me to waltz about whiskey and turn my sad songs to lullabies? I don't need much of nothing except for all your loving and a waltz about whiskey all night. Well, one quarter should do. Number 832, little truth from the jukebox should make it all right. When the booze sets in, I'm getting high again to waltz about whiskey all night. So won't someone dance with me to waltz about whiskey and turn the sad songs to lullabies? I don't need much or nothing except for all your loving and a waltz about whiskey all night. Well, I remember the night she sat down beside me. She cried, love was a ring that won't end. I was handed a lie. Now the only thing I know of the ring is the circle my glass leaves behind. So won't someone dance with me to waltz about whiskey and turn my sad songs to lullabies? I don't need much or nothing except for all your loving and a waltz about whiskey all right.
Woo! Excellent. I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
Chuck.
beautiful. Oh my gosh. All right, so you have another song you can sing for us?
I do.
All right.
Let me see.
And then we're going to end with the Merry Christmas song for our viewers all over the world.
Okay. The boys were singing Ching-a-ling that summer night we met. You were 10 and 17, oh, how could I forget? When every star from near and far was watching from above, watching two teenagers fall in love. The way we danced was not a dance, but more a long embrace. We held on to each other and we floated there in space. And I was shy to kiss you while that whole wide world could see. But Ching-a-ling said everything for me. And oh, the old poor old folks, they thought we lost our minds. They could not make heads or tails of the young folks' funny rhymes. But you and I knew all the words, and we always sang along to old Sham-a-ling dong ding, Sham-a-ling dang dong. So after years and after tears and after summers pass, old folks try to warn us how our love will never last. And all we'd get was soaking wet from walking in the rain and singing shing-a-ling again. And oh, the old poor old folks, they smiled and walked away, but I bet they did some sham-a-lam-a-ding-dong in their day. And I bet that they still close their eyes, and I bet they sing along to old sham-a-ling-dong-ding, sham-a-ling-dang. Oh, those sweet old love songs, whoa, every word rings true. Sham-a-ling-dang-dong means sweetheart, sham-a-ling-dong-ding does too. And it means that right here in my arms, well, that's where you belong.